Hey everybody, I hope you're going to enjoy this coffee break. We're going to do something a little different. At work, some of the guys had expressed interest in the Turkish coffee, that they saw in a YouTube short I had made with my son. And so I'm going to go in a little deeper detail about what Turkish coffee is, and we're going to learn a lesson too. So stay tuned. Turkish coffee originates from Yemen. In the 16th century, within the Ottoman Empire, Sultan Suleiman I was introduced to coffee. The beverage became loved by the wealthy and noble. The Sultan loved Turkish coffee so much, it's reported that members of his harem were taught to brew it. By the mid-1550s, Turkish coffee was no longer restricted to the upper classes. It became commonplace in any household. This led to the spread of coffee houses, similar to today's coffee shops. All right, now, Turkish coffee. How do we make Turkish coffee? Okay, if you're going to make Turkish coffee, you're going to need a few different things. This is not your normal pot of coffee we're talking about here. This is Turkish coffee. So, you're going to need this little pot right here, which is called a sieve or an abrik. All right, this is going to be the engine of your coffee making right here. You're also going to need some Turkish coffee cups. Now, these Turkish coffee cups are in the Ottoman style, and they are called zarf. All right. Now, Turkish coffee is not a coarsely ground coffee like you normally get when you buy a bag or buy a can. It is a finely ground coffee. It looks a little like this. It has almost a powder consistency. This is what it looks like. And Turkish coffee is usually served with a glass of water, Turkish delight, and or chocolate. All right, now let's look. How do we make Turkish coffee? Well, I looked on the internet, and on the internet, there's only about a few different thousand ways to make Turkish coffee, and everybody's got their own little way and own little spin on it. So what we're going to do is we're going to do it the right way. We're going to do it the Brother Josh way. All right, so here we go. You have got to have what has already been said, and then you're going to have to fill your little cups up with water. And then when you fill your little cups up with water, we're going to pour them in here. We're going to add the coffee, and then we're going to put them on medium heat for about 6 minutes. And when we put it on medium heat for about 6 minutes, it's going to start to boil. Well, when it starts to boil, what's going to happen is that there is going to be a froth, a foam that comes up on top of the coffee. And this foam is the special part of Turkish coffee. It is what makes Turkish coffee Turkish coffee. And I'm going to tell you, it is something very good to drink. Now, seeing that coffee boil up reminded me of a few things, especially in the Bible. The Bible says that the anger of the Lord was hot, also that David's anger was greatly kindled. So let me ask you a question. Is it a sin to be angry? No, it's not always wrong to be angry. Mark 3, 4 and 5 says this, that he, or Jesus, had looked around about on them with anger. And Judges 10 and 7 says this, the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel. Now we know that Jesus, who is God, does not sin. Every act he does is act done in love and in righteousness. So what determines whether anger is sinful or not? Well, I found two reasons. One, you need to ask the question, why am I angry? And two, how do you handle your anger? If you're angry because someone is blessed or fortunate, that's sin. You know, we ought to rejoice with our brother and sister when they are blessed or when something good happens to them. But there are many, many people out there who are angry, jealous, and envious when people seem to be blessed or good things happen to them. So we've got to look at the motive of our anger to know whether or not that anger is justified or not. Two, I want to say this. You shouldn't be easily angered. Listen to James 1:19. Let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. So we see here that James knew a little something about anger, and he's saying, okay, you can be swift to hear. There's things you can say when you hear it, but let's not go quick to wrath or quick to anger. Now let me read Ecclesiastes 7 and 9 to you. It says this, be not hasty in thy spirit to be angry, for anger resteth in the bosom of fools. So here Solomon kind of sums it up that if you are real quick to be angry and you're a hothead, you're foolish. Now, no one likes to be around a hothead. They're volatile, there's always trouble, and it's liable to bull out upon you. All right, and let's look at this. You shouldn't allow your anger to cause you to speak or act sinfully. That is, if you're angry over something, you shouldn't be cursing people. You shouldn't be seeking revenge. You shouldn't be fighting. You shouldn't be arguing. These are all things that happen when people act out of their anger, and it is sinful. Ephesians 4:26 says this, be ye angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath. And here Paul is basically saying is that there are times we're going to be angry. He says, but you don't need to act in sin. You don't need to act out of that anger sinfully. And to the best of your ability, try to get that anger settled down before you go to sleep, because you don't want that anger hardening into malice. You got it? That means forgive. That means overlook faults. That means love your enemy. Now, what is a righteous anger or an anger over correct reason? And it does not lead one to sin. Because we've seen the example of Jesus. He was angry, but Jesus never sinned. God was angry, but God does not sin. Well, let me put this before you, is that it should make you angry that people out there abort babies, murder babies. You see, that is unjust. It is wrong. And they are killing the innocent. And things like this ought to anger us. And that anger can be put to good use if it is used rightly. If something so bothers you, an injustice so bothers you, then you can start to do things to help correct that. You can vote for people in elections that don't stand for that, who will try to abolish that. You can also start to get the word out, teach against it, preach against it, speak against it. Also, what you can do is maybe if you feel led, you can start to pass out tracts about abortion or stand outside an abortion clinic and talk people out of murdering their children. So you must see here is that anger can be a good thing if it is used rightly, if it is a righteous anger. A righteous anger. It should make you angry that people give Christ a bad name. It should make you angry if someone blasphemes God or takes advantage of you or your family. It is not something that we should take lightly. But you must understand is that we must act appropriately when this happens and go through the proper channels to settle the grievances. All right, now let's go back to our coffee.